folks, and welcome back to Fishing with Den. So over the past few months I've had a few inquiries about how to make ground bait feeders. So today I'm going to do exactly that for you. I'm going to show you how to make some really simple feeders up. These actually go back to years and years ago when feeders first came out. Of course these days, like these ones, they're all moulded and all the rest of it. But back in the day, when I were a lad, we didn't have that sort of sophistication, but the feeders work just as well, and there's no reason why you can't make your own in the same way now, because it's a lot cheaper. Now these bought ones, depending on the ones you buy, cost anything from sort of £2 to £3, which is $4 or $5 in Australia and America. These ones basically cost me nothing because I already had most of the stuff in. I'm using this wire mesh, which started off, if you can see here, this is some fencing mesh. I think it was originally chicken mesh. It's 6mm and it's perfect for the job. Now bear in mind that this is going to be underwater, so it's one of this non-rustable variety. Stainless steel probably, I would think, but basically you need something which is corrosion resistant. As you can see, I've got various different thicknesses, or widths rather, in front of me, which I've cut off, but I'll show you more about that in a second. You're also going to need some lead. Now these lead strips are 15mm wide by about 150mm long, and they're about 1.5mm thick, and that gives me about 30 grams. And so the feeders we're going to be making today are going to be mostly 30 grams, but some will be 15 grams, and those will be for the smaller venues or indeed in the winter. And for that one, I didn't go out and buy anything special. This is just a lump of lead I had lying around. I just cut some off, flattened it in the vise, and then cut it. And you can cut it with these tin snips, or in my case I did it over on the bandsaw, and it gave me a nice straight edge. You're going to be needing a few swivels, a bit of fishing line, and depending on how you do this, because I've got two varieties, I'll get that closer for you. You can see one of these has a wire loop and this one has a nylon loop with a swivel on it. So the wire ones, this came from the reject store, cost me $2.99, which is about £1.60, something like that. It's also very much the same as this stuff, which is floral accessories stem wire, which is what florists use. And this is the same sort of gauge. It's just over a millimetre thick, and it's designed for making floral bouquets. To that extent, therefore, it is actually waterproof. It's not going to rust. It's just that this was a lot cheaper in the reject store. Tools wise, as you can see, just basic tools required, and these are to form the various different sizes, which I'll show you more about in a moment. Okay, I think that's the basic idea done. Let's crack on and get on with showing you how to actually do this. So as you can see, I've made up a range of different sizes and shapes here, just to give you an idea of the sort of thing that you might want to consider. Now obviously they're all in different stages of development. This one obviously is fairly small, whereas this one is a lot larger diameter. And the difference, of course, in how much bait they can take, this probably takes about 4 times as much as this one. You can also consider square. Now obviously when these things are on the bottom, if they're on a pond, they can roll a little bit and they can get knocked around by fish, but they will generally stay in one position because obviously you've got the lead and it's pretty stable. If you want to though, go to a square one, and by the time you've got the lid on there, that will actually also be very stable, but of course instead of being rounded here, you've got these shoulders which will help. And then this one, which I will show you a bit more of towards the end, this is going to be for big fast venues. Now obviously if you're fishing in a small pond or even a decent sized lake, you don't necessarily need something this shape or even this big. This one is specifically for those tidal venues that I fish, and this is going to carry 60 grams of weight. Now of course most of the time you won't need that. You'll be looking at the 15 to 30 grams, and that should cover the vast majority of your fishing. Now you've got the basic idea, I just need to explain a little bit about this mesh. It's 6mm mesh, and of course when you cut it off you do tend to end up with these little sharp pieces off there. So what I've done is I've actually got a grinder, so I've ground them off so it's smooth. But if you put that in a vise like that with just these pieces sticking out at the top, then you can actually obviously cut as much as you can off, but you can also just use a file then to smooth them down, because you want the top and bottom edges to be as smooth as you can. Don't worry about this edge. As long as this edge is nice and smooth, that's the good start point. So here we are then. This is a form. This is something like 33, 35mm, something like that, and you'll see I put screws in it. And the reason for that is that if I put this on, just clip it down like that, it just holds on to things while I just mould it around the form. You don't have to do this, it just makes it an awful lot easier. Now, obviously, I've got to cut this off at this point, so I'll just keep my finger on there, take this off, and I'll cut along here. Oops. Okay, now again you'll see that this hasn't followed the form because it's very springy. So I'll put it back on and just try and just squeeze it down a bit more, like so. You may actually also find, just to help you with getting it nice and curved, just use a smaller one. This one's just a 1-inch curve, and I'm just holding it so I can do that. And now, as you can see, we're pretty much in a circle. Okay, so now how do I hold these together? Well, on some of these, like this one, if you want to be really basic, remember I told you about these end pieces? Well, when they meet inside, if you can see that, all I've done is just taken those end pieces and just bent them over. Now, if you want to do that, that works fine. I've, on the other hand, gone for this method, which is basically stitching up using some of this thin florist wire again. And all I've done is just twisted around at the bottom, twisted through and gone back down, and then that's it done. Remember the lead weight is going to go across that, so that's going to protect it too. Just before I get to stitching up the feeders, let me just very quickly show you how to do the square ones. Now these are actually even more simple than the circular ones. If this is just a piece of 1-inch aluminium tube, okay? All I'm going to do is roughly find the center point, put my finger on it, and then just bend. And again, just gently force that down so you've got 90 degrees. Work your way around, and this is just a piece of scrap, obviously. Then final one. Now I've got a little bit of spare here, so I've got to cut off. Just stretch that out a little. Okay, you can trim that if you like, and I probably will in a moment, but just to show you, that now goes together like so, and if you put it back on the form, it just meets nicely in the middle. Same thing applies though for the larger one. This is 40mm by 25, and the reason for that is that it's a piece that I'd got in the scrap box, and I literally just did the same thing as I've just shown you with the other one. I'm just going to spend a few minutes stitching these together, so whilst I'm at it, I'll show you how I go about it. There's nothing difficult, just pass it through, give yourself a nice twisted, tight fitting section, like so, and then just take this through each of the sections just as if you're sewing something together. Go through the next one. And finally to the top. And then I'm going to go back around again, back down to the bottom. Okay. And now when I get to the bottom, I actually do just literally a half hitch. So just take it through both of those squares, bring it through like so, and I'll do it one more time. Go through both of them, come back out through here, pull tight. That's it. Cut off the tag end. That's it. Now you might at this point just need to give it a little bit of what we call fettling, as I think I've mentioned in other videos. But there you go, you've now got a nice round feeder. As you can see, that's everything stitched together now, and while I was at it, I also decided to make another couple of intermediate ones here. So basically what we've got is these 25mm diameter round ones, and those are 4 squares tall, 2 of those. Same thing again, but 5 squares tall. This is the one which is either 32 or 35 on the white mandrel here. And those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares tall, 2 of those. Going to the square ones, again, these are the 25mm square ones. And I made up a couple of the 40mm by 25 as well. I thought I might as well make myself a batch up while I was at it. So I suppose the next thing now is to show you how to do either the handle or this sort of more of a professional and lighter tag. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing it this way. It's a bit more primitive, but as I said, perfectly doable. If I lift that up a second, all I've done is created that. And I'll show you how to do that on the vise now. It's very simple. All I've done is cut off a piece of the 1mm florist's wire. There's a nail in the vise. I'm just going to twist it around and pull it tight, create a loop. Now if you wanted to, you could have put a swivel in there, but you don't really need to. Then I've cut this, which is just a 17mm piece of scrap wood, and all I'm going to do is just hold that sort of about there-ish to give me an idea where I need to do the final bends, as you see. And then from there, I'm going to just bend these 2 legs in until you've got that situation there. Now you must cut it and bend it so that these 2 legs go one above the other, not one in front of the other. Otherwise it makes the lead bulge out a little bit too much. If I just disassemble this one all together now, first of all, it gives me a better opportunity to show you how I've just bent over the wires. Hopefully you can see that clearly now. And then I've cut a 75mm piece of the lead up. Obviously it would start off life just as a flat half of that, but all you have to do is put that in, bend the bottom up, take your connector, put that in, and then squeeze the whole thing down. Take a pair of pliers, just make sure you've properly squeezed everything down. And if you're doing a primitive feeder, it does actually work very well, but it is a bit more primitive. That's the end of what you're doing. That's now 15 grams or thereabouts. Let's just try it on the machine, and It's actually 17 grams. Well, a couple of grams makes no difference whatsoever, but you've got a perfectly usable feeder. And this is actually what they used to look like in the early days before we got those moulded feeders. Now, as I say, I like mine to be a little bit different, and I quite like to have this sort of tag effect here. So I'm going to do mine slightly different. As always, this is very simple. Basically, I have a small swivel in there. There's an overhand knot. It's then twisted. Another overhand knot. It goes through either side of the outer wires here on these first two squares, as you can see from the ends of my fingertips, and you just then tie a third overhand knot. Now, because this is 20 pounds breaking strain line, I do actually normally just drop a dab of glue on that one, because I have known those ones to come apart in the past. And then once again, take your 25 gram weight, put it in at the bottom, and this time at the top, try and do this a bit backwards for you so you can see. Put your lead through and just squeeze down. Now, the difference between these two, or sorry, this one and the other one, is that on this one, the lead is actually holding this wire on. And some people could be a bit concerned that it would come apart. In actual fact, it tends not to. I've never known one to do that yet, but you never know. So of course on this one, because we've tied it round the edges of these squares and then gone through the lead, now it's going to hold on, and that's it. 30 gram ones are fractionally different, and I'll do one of those now for you. So let me show you how to tie the handle for it. Just put the line through and tie an overhand loop to hold the swivel in position. Now, you want that to be fairly tight up to the swivel, so put a picker or a needle or something in and just pull the knot up until it's tight, and then pull fairly hard like that to finish it off and keep it in position. Now, this is the part where I have some issues with my arthritis, but we'll see if we can do it. If you twist these, there we go, ouch. Twist the line to create a twisted loop. That's going to have to do because it's too painful to do much else. That should do it though. And then just tie overhand loop, take it through, and just then again use the picker or the baiting needle or whatever it is you're using to just move it to where you want it to be, which in my case is probably about there, and pull tight. Now, as I said to you, we're going to take one side of this through here and one through here. I'll just give you a close-up of that now. So, effectively, we've just gone either side of these first two squares. Hopefully you can see that. And then I'm going to leave myself a little bit of room, and I'm just going to tie another overhand loop. Again, I've got to use either a knot picker or the needle to just pull that down a bit, like so. And I tend to just offer up the lead at this point, because I'm going to put that into here like that, and we're going to be bending this over here shortly, but I just want to make sure I've got the knot in the right place, and that's actually a bit too far up. So as I say, take your knot picker and just move it on up a little bit. like so, and then you can cut off. Now again, I would put some super glue onto that knot because it can come loose. But just to show you what we're going to do here, this is going to be a 30-gram feeder. So I'm just going to fold this in half, keep it nice and straight and together, and just close it down, as you see, nice and straight. So now what we're going to do is to take this through the back of the line, like that. I'll be straightening that up in a second, but then just bend that over like that. Bend this one at the bottom over as well. Try and keep it straight. Okay, just pull this one out a bit because I've gone a bit too far. Put the screwdriver in, and then get the knot into a central position inside so that everything hangs neatly, and then just clamp down on both ends. I'll just pull that a little bit further up. There we go. And that is exactly how the 30-gram one works. So just before I finish, I did say I'd show you how to make these 60-gram ones, and it is a slightly different process once you've finished stitching together. And what I've done, I've taken the two 150mm lead strips, and I've actually bent them in half. I've taken some of that thick florist wire, same procedure as I showed you for this one, except that I put a few more twists in it, and all I'm going to do is fit it so that it sits on the top like that. If I just put this on first of all, just get this to bend over a bit, that's it. Same for this one. There we go. Now I can hold those two off here for a second, fit that between the two of them, and then just reposition so it goes in like so. A little bit fiddly. Just clamp these two down. And we're almost done. What I am going to do is just bend this up a little bit that way, a little bit that way, and I'll be cutting that off in a second. Before I do that, I just want to bend up the bottoms. Obviously when you're bending two lots, it's a lot stiffer. So that's it. In, clamp down. And as I say, I'll just cut these ends off up there. I didn't want to leave it straight at the edges. I wanted to be able to pull against this without it coming off. I will actually just file these down a little bit just to make sure that they don't catch me with their sharp edges. You wouldn't want to cut yourself. But effectively, that is how to make the 60-gram feeder. And that will lie flat on the bottom, as you see. It might wobble a little bit, but that's only because I've got a thing bent out. There we go, now it's solid. That is not going anywhere. So that's it, folks. All I've got to do now is to finish off all of these. There's a total of 10. Some will be 30, some will be 15, and of course that last one will be 60 grams. Anyway, that's the ground bait feeder video finished, so hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button. If you want to subscribe, you can. And until the next time, bye for now.